Thank you, Dr. Gajanand Rao, for your generous introduction. I must say you have removed half of my nervousness as I stand before the participants of a KFI gathering. About this audience, I have very special feelings. We have with us, friends, a very challenging theme during this gathering. Living responsibly in today's world has, of course, as all of you surely have seen, tremendous significance to our collective living and to our individual life also. As Sri Kandaswami already clarified, to be responsible for something has a rather narrow significance. To live responsibly has much wider application.
I need to speak a little more loudly.
Okay. When he said that to be responsible for something, my mind went to something I had heard long back. Please permit me a little humor here. I believe there was an advertisement for a very responsible servant. The advertisement said, "We want a boy who is very responsible to be a servant at our huge house." Many candidates came and the interview panel asked everybody, "What makes you think that you will be responsible?" And one of the candidates said, "Of course I am very responsible." The panel said, "But how?" Then he said, "I have served already at many homes as the servant. Whenever there was a theft, they said I was responsible." So language has its own limitations, its own twists. We will not indulge in any such humor more than a limited measure maybe. We are here to look into this issue on one hand seriously, but I must hasten to add that to be serious never means to be in some kind of tension. On the contrary, when we are serious, we are in attention, not tension. So it is about being very attentive with a mind that is fresh, not a strained mind, not a frightened mind, not a mind that is already bothered or worried about something. So we would like to examine this theme with certain attention and certain responsibility. Even as I begin, therefore, I realize I have a big responsibility here to speak on living responsibly in today's world. In the booklet that has been given to you, right in the introduction, Alokji has said beautifully, responsibility to act in this world demands not merely political and social action, but a transformative inner revolution in the individuals who make the society. Generally, when we think of responsibility, our mind goes to addressing issues of the world. Or why world? Issues at our own home. issues in a relationship between two individuals. So it gets a little bit outward, specific. What do I do here? Doing what, saying what will make me a responsible role holder in this scenario is what comes to our mind. So, politically or socially, to do something that is right, of course, has its place, and then only it becomes complete. In fact, in the beautiful teachings, we again and again come across a very valuable revelation, a very valuable observation by Krishnaji, that if there is a gap between seeing and acting, that is fragmented action, that is incorrect action. And what is more, when there is right seeing, he goes on to add that right seeing expresses as action right away. Right seeing itself becomes action. This is a very profound insight, and when you and I think about it, we sadly recognize how generally we are in a haste to put out fire. Firefighting operations mark our life, and therefore problems never get solved. We solve this problem and another rises in another area. Therefore, this integration of the inner and the outer has to take place, and this integration will take place when the inner is rightly examined. Therefore, a transformative inner revolution. For if we just say inner revolution, our mind again has an old habit, hastily catch hold of some beliefs and some values printed somewhere about which much propaganda has been done, become a member somewhere and go about saying, I have changed the way of my life, look at my dress, look at my way of living now. Some external marks and highly conceptual thinking. We have various concepts. That is not transformative. There we go from Tweedledum to Tweedledee, as the expression goes, hardly any change, really speaking. Therefore, the question is, how do we and when do we go for that transformative revolution, inner revolution, which takes in itself the appropriate action also. The simplest example, if I may indulge in one, is if one sees clearly that what is served to one in a gold bowl perhaps is poison, then rejecting that offering in a gold bowl follows without winking of an eyelid. Seeing has that power. However, we are not to make seeing also another comfort zone, another comfortable concept. This requires tremendous amount of inner energy, not the energy of the athlete, but the energy of the inquirer. When we talk about living responsibly, and when we don't want to do so in a compartmentalized fashion, obviously it relates to our being responsible to things outside and to things inside also. Our responsibility towards the world, which begins with home. Charity begins at home is an old saying. we sometimes use big words. Unfortunately, speakers and writers like me fall in love with big words, because with big words we bamboozle big crowds. Then we get more invitations. Then one day we realize I am no different from how I was before I learnt all these big words. So I hasten to add, our responsibility towards the world begins with our responsibility right at home, right with the person with whom we interact almost on a daily basis. Though I was not intending to make any reference to any scriptures or heritage in any part of the world, responding to a little bit of suggestion that Dr. Rao made, that Chidanandji may make a bit of reference to or may cover a little bit of how ancient scriptures perhaps can be looked at in a new way or something like that. At this juncture, I may say, in support of how charity begins at home, there is a saying by Jesus Christ, love thy neighbor. Long back I had not understood what this means, love thy neighbor. Then I asked a Christian friend of mine. He whispered in my ears. Christ was very smart because he knew that it's easy to love somebody far away. Very difficult to love your neighbor with whom you have a daily interaction. Therefore, with a little adaptation, what it means is to love your spouse, to love your teenager girl or boy is extremely hard. And to go to Himalayas, spend a few days in some ashram there and then write a check, etc. is easier. To love somebody who is in touch with you daily is very difficult. So that saying of the Bible also asks us, begin with near but look far. So with the world, small or big, and with ourselves, we have responsibility. In many of the K talks as well as talks by people in the KFI, we often hear a statement how the world is in tremendous danger. It is falling apart. Sometimes you and I, maybe having had a good breakfast, wonder, really, is it in danger? The world looks quite all right to me at this moment because the breakfast was good. Sometimes we wonder, is it true? However, when we give some careful attention, it is 100% true. All the more because on one hand, there is so much of technological revolution. With a smartphone in hand, you can do n number of things. We ourselves get amazed at how fast we accomplish things these days, all on just the phone itself, compared with how we ourselves a few years ago had to struggle. In the days of that Xerox and fax and scarcity, you had to go somewhere to get something done. A whole day is lost. Now you do just on your hand. So in contrast to how much progress there has been in the technological world, making our standard of living go higher and higher, the total absence of ending of conflict, the total absence of true peace that everyone knows in one's own heart. In fact, when some good things were talked of me, I was smiling to myself. In fact, I thought, okay, I will begin the talk today saying, dear friends, some good things have been said about me, but let me tell you, you have your problems, I have plenty of my problems. No human being is free from conflict. Somehow it is the nature of life, and perhaps to use the philosophical language, as long as the self is up and active, conflict is bound to be there, like the other side of the same coin. So here we are trying to live responsibly, relate responsibly to outside and inside. Now, let's begin with how insensitive we have become to nature. Even in such a beautiful place as Rishi Valley, most of us find it very hard not to, use our mobiles or not to get an update on some matter, not to think about some news, the world news. And even when we talk, I'm sure it's very difficult for us not to again go into those personal conflicts, what happened last week again at our home over there. We in the process get so drowned in the affairs of the self. Here is beautiful nature. When a friend draws our attention, look how beautiful that tree is, we hastily say, yeah, it's very beautiful. But to tell you again what my wife said last week, in response to my, bit irresponsible statement, the way she reacted, the tree is beautiful, of course, we'll come to that again, etc. I'm talking of myself. I don't have a wife, but you have your problems, I have mine. I have my intimate relationships. So, we become therefore insensitive to nature. We get more and more caught up in today's technological developments. Technology is, of course, proving to be a Frankenstein's monster. We create it to make our life easier, but it sort of makes our life more complicated. It is contrary or so contradictory to what we thought before. We thought we would have more leisure, but with all these gadgets, we find more and more people stay up to 1 a.m. and whatnot. More and more people. It is said that in olden days, when man or a lady would go to washroom, maybe at 1 a.m., on his way back, there was a tendency to just look into the fridge or maybe drink something or even bite something, But today, this is an old joke actually. Some years ago this came that at 2 a.m. a person goes to toilet, while coming back he checks email. Such is the slavery to gadgets that has been developing. Now it is not email, maybe it is WhatsApp, maybe it is something else. Though I must hasten to add, some years ago when I was living in California, in the city of San Jose, the morning newspaper, San Jose Mercury News, there was a report. Man saved because of checking email at 2 a.m. How? What? Yes, in a very strange, exceptional incident on one of the main roads of that city in California, a speeding truck rammed into a house and straight went into the bedroom and crushed the bed. But thank God, this man at that time, 2 a.m., was checking email in another corner of the room. So his bed got crushed, but he looked at the whole damage, saying, sometimes it is good to be weird. But friends, I already feel guilty about saying this. In no way I am encouraging that practice. So we become insensitive to nature. We become insensitive to the smile of a little boy, a little girl. Any beauty around means much less to us, all because of a big error. We get lost, we get so absorbed in our own thoughts, me and my, and so on. There is the relationship with the world at large. To take an instance, you and I now often talk about terrorism. we talk about some group here, some section over there, or sometimes a whole country, or sometimes a head of some country who is very moody or very aggressive. And we say, look at what is happening. The world is so bad now. Look at that president, look at this prime minister, look at this fellow, and so on. However, as we pay attention to the whole matter very carefully, we realize that a little of that lady, a little of that man is very much in us too, on a different scale, in a situation similar to that. That president over there might be dealing with, relation between two countries. He is threatening that I will put a nuclear bomb on the other country, something like that. And we pick up the newspaper and say, see how irresponsible, and so on. Then if we look at ourselves a little bit, we see that just the earlier evening, we had threatened maybe a family member. If you do this one more, you are out of this house. Do you realize? And so on. Now, is there much of a difference qualitatively between the threat of throwing a nuclear bomb and asking my teenager son to no more enter this house because I was asking him to do something traditional and he, something like that, When children grow up, sometimes it is in our country about some intercaste marriage. You marry that girl of some other community, good, but you will no more enter this house. Such things happen in some places. So look within, you will find that we are equally weird, we are equally aggressive. So whether it is the head of North Korea or the new president in United States or somebody in ISIS, somebody in Europe or Africa, anywhere, a little examination shows to us, all I want to say is the human mind is very much similar. Violence is in every one of us. Somebody like me may give a long lecture on peace, and if nobody appreciates, there will arise some anger in me. I should not have come to talk to these people. Such a beautiful talk I gave on peace, and they are not appreciating. Who is free from those violent, angry, intolerant, impatient urges that arise in oneself? Therefore, one other implication of this is, this human mind creates the world. The individual makes the world in the sense there is a certain psychology, there is a certain tendency to get into some patterns of thinking, certain molds, certain grooves, and that tends to spread. And you and I are also subscribing essentially to that way of thinking. Now, we may not be in some big positions because of various factors. We may not be holding those responsibilities. Therefore, those unpleasant, unacceptable, or even horrible ways of behavior seem to be emanating somewhere far away from us. But the seed for all kinds of unharmonious behavior around the world is in us. So this self is the source of so much of violence. So to live responsibly, yes, in today's world would call for not just some window dressing, not just for making our house look a little neat from outside, but there has to be a deep inner change. And this inner change is not possible by reading or by deciding, okay, what are the 10 ways I should change, you tell me. From tomorrow onwards, for your sake at least, I will change. You cannot do that. It is not by having a list of do's and don'ts, however passionately you might have adopted them. The very science of living is such that we behave differently if we see differently. If we continue to see ourselves to be very important, and then for some kind of conforming to a group, we agree, we sign. Sometimes there are gatherings, get-togethers, there are summits. In Geneva or in some place they meet and they prepare a charter. They call it by big names, Charter of Global Ethics. Whether you are Hindus or Muslims, Christians or Baha'i, Muslim, whatever, this is a bunch of global ethics. Let us all try to promote this. And much of it, alas, is so much a product of thought. So much of product of sitting down and going through a whole lot of literature and all those academic approaches and not accompanied. Academics I myself respect a lot, but academics not accompanied by right living will terribly fail in coming out with any solution. When we see that it is not by adopting some well-phrased, well-worded ideas, it has to emerge from a different way of seeing. It becomes obviously necessary to examine what this seeing is. Call it seeing, call it observing. So I draw from one of the statements. Talking of quality of observation, it is said to observe, for example, the hate that is spreading throughout the world. One human being wanting to hurt another by a gesture, by a word, or by a look. I just took a fragment, a part, to observe the hate that is spreading throughout the world. Hate outside and the hate inside. Many a time when certain anger arises in us, we feel ashamed later, but at the time anger rises, all we are interested is to see somebody cry. All we are interested is to see that somebody has tears in her eyes or his eyes. Somebody should come to his or her knees. That urge is there. In a related manner, many a time the human psyche gets hijacked by envy. Envy, jealousy, hate, these are the things that take us far away from a certain basic goodness. And unless there is the rediscovery of the childlike goodness, how will ever responsible living be possible? Now, taking the example of envy, let me try to throw a little light on what seeing can do. Before that, I might read somewhere, look, don't be jealous. Appreciate what others have. If somebody has a bigger house, somebody has a more wonderful companion, somebody has more degrees or some other accomplishments, appreciate, take happiness, be happy in that. Don't be jealous, And I say, this is what I need. I have been very jealous. So let me write it down. Let me put it on fridge. Or better, even where I brush my teeth. Because Gandhiji put some Gita shlokas on the mirror in South Africa and he memorized, and see what happened. He became famous, and I want to become famous like Gandhiji, but they're not working out. Our mind goes for a tailspin meanwhile, but coming back, I write this and put it on, let us say, a prominent place in my house or at my office. I should not be jealous. That is it. This won't go far. In a testing moment, I am as jealous as before, if not more. In fact, I have two problems. I am again jealous in another testing moment, and the second problem is I am angry with the person who wrote that paragraph, from whose book I took up that passage. So, taking some idea and saying I should be like that has tremendous limitations. For a day or two, we might sort of hold the wild dog in leash. Later on, it breaks free. In contrast, as we study the teachings, as we reflect on life, as we let go of our dependence on written word, paragraphs, passages, and not to mention symbols and authorities, somebody coming in some special dress, somebody with a title, Swami, etc., they have done enough confusion in the country or in the world. As I let go of those things, because that is essential to the teachings, in the proper study of the teachings, we let go of so many paraphernalia, so many externalities, and we look at ourselves. Now I come to the essential area. I look at my envy. Here is envy rising in me, and I look at it, very uncomfortable with it, but doesn't matter. And all I have read about envy also tends to pop up. I say, no, I don't want to go by those wonderful words. I want to see envy as it is. I don't want to see it as so and so has described envy or its causes or its solution. Much has been said. I want to just see envy. Then probably, everyone should do that by oneself. Probably when one sees envy carefully, one finds that it has an intimate relation with pleasure. I see some gulab jamun in the refrigerator on my way back from toilet at 2 a.m. Just first it was just a curiosity. Let me see what is in the fridge. Then I said, 2 have remained. Like that. There is a pleasure drive. Let me enjoy this. Now, how is envy connected to pleasure? I see somebody, let's say, becoming famous, becoming rich, and so on. Why do I envy him? Now, in a talk like this, we verbalize, we put into words. But in the actual seeing, without the interference of words, I can see that I have a psychology. It's not biology. I have a psychology of experiencing or imagining pleasure in that fame, in that name, in that wealth, in that accomplishment, in that winning of some award and so on. The self sort of visualizes a pleasure, high, a high of some pleasure. And pleasure has that illusory and deceptive association with happiness. All of us want happiness. That, of course, is natural. Nobody wants to be unhappy. But happiness is one thing, pleasure is very different. But in the pleasure that I visualize of this fame and name, I wrongly and falsely connect happiness, and then I say, I wanted that happiness, I wanted that pleasure, and this guy is having it, which is somehow not the way things have to be. There is no justice in this world, I am more and more convinced now, and so on. So, primarily, it is not about her or him. It is my false or stupid investment in fame and name or in some other fanciful thing. This is psychology. When I see the fault lines in this psychology, in this conditioning, where I picked it up doesn't matter actually. We don't have to go into the past. Was I like this from childhood, or did it begin during college days? Or shall I blame my husband for this? Ever since I married him, I have become jealous. It is irrelevant actually, to dig into the past. The beauty of this science is, without going even a couple of hours behind, staying in this moment itself, you see what is wrong with the movement of the self, what is wrong with the psychological movement, which I described as the false investment in something outside, visualizing me being famous, and if I am famous, of course, what a wonderful thing it would be, etc. That psychological movement is faulty. There is nothing wrong in becoming famous, there is nothing wrong in occupying a position, there is nothing wrong in getting an award. But when we imagine that unless I get an award of some kind, I believe there was somebody who wanted to become something, president, secretary, treasurer, something in some organization. He could not become anything. Then he told a few of his friends, look, I neither have a job nor have any position. I don't feel like living. Then they said to him, no, never mind, we can make you tomorrow something. And they formed, organization of the unemployed in that town, and he was made the secretary. So he could print a visiting card, secretary of organization of the unemployed of this big town, and so on. So this is how our psychology works. Typically when you and I hear such jokes, we say, there are some people like that. But it is us only. Including the speaker, maybe beginning with the speaker. I don't mind making a selected confession. Some 30 years ago, I started on a journey of seeking so-called truth. And the confession is as simple as this. Over all these 3 or 4 decades, though outwardly, yes, I have moved among gatherings like this as a seeker of truth, inwardly, actually, I was laboring to express better, to talk better, to write better, etc. And that's what has made me finally. Next year I will be a senior citizen on the verge of become. You missed out that.
I thought you were in 40s.
No, in the handout I had given,
Yeah, it was there.
at the last I had written.
I saw that.
I had written about myself and given to them. Swami Chidananda is poised to become a senior citizen and so on. Okay. So, even as I am all set to cross that milestone of 60 years age, my psychology is not yet free from that priority being given to speaking well and writing well and being accepted as a knowledgeable person. And alas, truth slipped through fingers in the process. That's how I say, I have my problems. I make selected confessions though. Don't ask me, tell me other problems of yours. Please don't ask that in the question answer session. Other things are welcome. I am very afraid of that because I sometimes tend to be very naive and open up everything. And later on, I lost, So, pleasure is a very powerful movement in the human psyche. And if it were rooted in truth, nobody would say, question it. But it is rooted in falsehood. Same way, friends, a whole lot of fear. Suppose it is biological insecurity. That is understandable. But there is something that they call psychological insecurity. Suppose you get some food and I am likely to starve and I am a bit concerned. Really? Next 3 days? Maybe because the bank notes have changed or whatever, I may not get even a food on the plate. That is biological insecurity. The various earthquake may happen. The Weather Bureau says that, look, in your area, a severe earthquake is likely to happen. And you are afraid. That is biological insecurity. But then I come to know that somebody who studied with me, and I clearly remember in high school, I used to help him in his mathematics. And now he has become the richest man in Chennai. Whereas I am having such difficulty, And then I say, this is not fair. I used to help him in maths, What has that got to do with all this? Do you have any problem of basic needs? I don't have. On the contrary, all of us here in this gathering, nobody has problem of basic needs. We have plenty, pretty much. But then, psychological insecurity. To think of somebody else progressing a lot as somewhat unfair, unacceptable, or maybe I have nothing against her, but I go on asking myself, where did I go wrong in life? Where did I go wrong? I had a friend who used to, in a single day, make the inauspicious sound at least a dozen times. Once some of us gathered around him and asked him, why do you make this inauspicious sound so many times? Even while answering, he said, that has been my habit. So we get into a groove, it becomes a habit. I should hasten to add that he was making audibly, and many of us make that sound inaudibly. That antarnada is in us. So that is a groove, that is psychology, that is habit, that is becoming mechanical, that is losing touch with the reality. The reality is I have enough. The reality is I have a few people who love me. But my mind is hijacked by this picture of fame where there is a big fan club. There are so many who adore me. I go to Chennai or Hyderabad, Delhi or Kolkata, there are people to receive me at airport. And people running to me for autograph, let us say. And I have a fancy for it. And I say, that's what I wanted, but long way to go, and so on. That is not a true need. It is not a need at all. If it happens, there is nothing wrong with it. I have nothing against anybody being very famous. Look, so he has become so famous, unspiritual, we won't say. There is nothing, no contradiction between fame and spirituality. A famous person could be very mature also. Incidentally, I had a friend many years ago who looked very much like, there was a great cricketer in Karnataka, Vishwanath, Gavaskar's time, G.R. Vishwanath. And this friend of mine called Satyanarayana looked exactly like Vishwanath, a look-alike. He was a businessman. Whenever he went to various airports in the country, those days, people would come to him for autograph. And I asked him, what did you feel when people came to you for autograph, mistaking you for Vishwanath? He said, whatever it is, it was a good feeling. After some time, of course, he got sick of it. Even as somebody is approaching, he would say, I am not Vishwanath. Please leave me alone. I am Satyanarayan. Sorry, I was not intending to go into so much of humor. The idea is, because there is a fear that we may lose track of what we are talking. So let me hasten to clarify. There is a psychological movement, and then there is the true need. Biological insecurity leading to a kind of fear is understandable. Though once in a while we hear of such people who are absolutely free from fear. I always wondered whether that is really possible. Maybe it is some yogic accomplishment. Bring a cobra in front of them. Some really illumined people, they are able to. Maybe they have some supernatural powers. Perhaps they know that this cobra will not do anything. You and I don't know. Our mind immediately thinks, I want to be friendly to this cobra, but what if the cobra is not? Cobra decides to be otherwise. We have such doubts. So there is a biological insecurity and I get afraid, understandable. But psychological insecurity is, I am going to a party next Monday and I am worried that there are some people who also might come and who might make fun of me. The fear of being made fun of, the fear of not being respectfully treated. And what is this being respectfully treated? I have my own pictures. Everything is so artificial. Nothing is absolute. I make a picture of what it is to be respectfully treated. Then I entertain a fear about whether that would happen, and then I get anxious. If that doesn't happen, what? I don't know, and so on. This is called psychological insecurity. So, towards bringing my words to a close, I wish to say that living responsibly towards the world, towards nature, towards ourselves, it seems to me, I'm sure there are many dimensions to it. I myself wish to learn more and more during the interactions, dialogues, and so on. For human life is very vast. So much, so many layers and layers, so many variations of how we get hijacked, how we get conditioned, occur, or there exist so many variations. But at this point I wish to say that if one can notice things like envy, things like fear, and moment to moment, which I don't mean literally, my humble submission is we use this expression moment to moment, which is true in a sense, but in no way it means 24 hours you must be on some kind of red alert or anything. What is meant is don't bring the duration, don't give too much importance to duration. Like people have notions about or ideas about how long should I look at myself? 1 hour in the morning and 1 hour in the evening, something like that. These complicate matter. Forget, don't worry about this 1 hour or 1 in morning, evening, and Brahma Muhurta and all those things. At the most, they may have some limited significance in some context. But the essential point here is, whenever you realize, hey, there is a wave of fear in me, that is the moment. Hey, in spite of so much of reading and so much of all this, I am envious. I am envious of that lady, for something. Now, quietly, silently, if we could look at it, without digging into the past, without us raising or irrelevant questions like, oh, this is not good, will I be like this for rest of my life? Projecting into future, right? What is the need to project into future, whether it is for rest of life or next 1 hour? What is the need to dig into the past for a short while or a long duration? Forget it. Moment. This moment, here is this little wave of envy. What is this? What is its structure? In such ways, if we could go about handling ourselves, and if we could, as Krishnaji somewhere uses an expression, break free of the psychological barriers. If we could break free of the psychological barriers, there is a different relationship that will come about on all levels, in all spheres. And then the way we handle situations is bound to be different. There is a different quality to everything we do or say. Everything we say or do undergoes a dramatic change, not so much because we have collected some noble thoughts, with due respect to all the noble thoughts contained in scriptures. I must answer quickly one point you had raised. Very quickly, very briefly. The Upanishads or the Gita or the Bible or the Quran or the Dhammapada and so on, in my humble submission, they were an attempt to guide humanity to this watchfulness only, but it was lost. When it was in the hands of large numbers of people, even if a person here or a person there presented those holy books, as they call, or books of wisdom, even if somebody here or somebody there presented those books of wisdom with a great amount of maturity, in no time it would get reduced to importance given to the word and importance given to where it is coming from. I believe in some city in Europe, in a park, a board was put, speak truth, avoid falsehood. And at the bottom it was written Bible or something. All the Christians in the town were very happy. See, in that park, the speak truth, for avoid falsehood is a Bible statement. Those who put that, some authorities, later on found out that in a hurry the source was not Bible, it was actually Dhammapada of Buddhism. So they hastily changed it, Dhammapada. The Christians were very angry. The Buddhists in the town were happy. And you can extend it. Next day if it were to be put Gita, then the Hindus are dancing in joy. Finally, when nothing is removed, KFI people are very happy. See, no book is mentioned. Why book at all? We at the KFI have a subtle identification, or maybe not. I am nobody to judge anybody. But all I can say is the self is too clever. Anywhere and everywhere, the self comes out in a new strategy to again build its fort. So, the freedom, breaking free from the psychological barriers seems to be one important dimension of living responsibly. And as I admitted, there are ways and ways to look at this. Let us hope in the 3.5 days, we shall delve into the depths. And as again the handout that was given to you has a passage by Krishnaji. There he said so beautifully, a gathering is where it's not just about the gatherings when he used to speak. He says, it's not about you coming to listen to me. It is rather to help you look into the mirror where you see yourself. So, I might not have said the correct words, but something to that effect. I conclude with the hope that all of us, including the speaker, all of us in this gathering would use the mirror, get a better understanding, an unbiased understanding of the self operating in us. Thank you very much.